My next song is a Tom Paxton tune called Last Thing on My Mind.
It's a lesson too late for learning. Made of sand, made of sand. In the wink of an eye, my soul is turning. In your hand, in your hand. You've got reasons of plenty for going. This I know, this I know. For the weeds have been steadily growing. Please don't go, please don't go. Are you going away with no word of farewell? Will there be not a trace left behind? I couldn't love you better. I didn't mean to be unkind. That was the last thing I learned. As I lie here in bed in the morning, without you, every song in my breast dies born. Without you, are you going away with no word of farewell? Will there be one trace left behind? You know I could have loved you better. I didn't mean to be unkind. That was the last thing on my mind. Are you going away with no word of farewell? Will there be not a trace left behind? I could have loved you better. I didn't mean to be unkind. That was the last thing on my mind.
All right, thank you very much. I think it's time for us to turn this over. We'll be back in a while.
Welcome to our dedication of the Woodcrest Arboretum. Thank you all for attending. We are blessed to have this beautiful day with the sun shining. We could have a little less wind, but everything looks really good. And also a beautiful music group. Little closer. Hey, okay. My name is Jerry Lawrence, the flower garden, who raises all the flowers in a greenhouse. And I start in February, and I plant them out in the garden in the spring. I grow lisianthus and zinnias and all kinds of flowers for the flower factory that then take those cut flowers and put them into bouquets. They put a smile on our residents' faces. You get flowers when you're happy or sad. Cut flowers are universal. Many cut flower gardeners are starting up recently. I don't know why that is. It's just because I started up again. Levi Fisher, where are you? Levi Fisher, I just want to recognize him because he's been an excellent big help to me out in the garden. He has a lot of experience in gardening. When I moved to Woodcrest 4 years ago, I became interested in the nature trail working with Lou Kaufman. Where's Lou Kaufman? Well, Lou, he's the I said grandfather, father, whatever you say. of the developer of the nature trail. Lou then asked me to take over for him. It was during an ice cream social in Gamber Auditorium 2 years ago, during a PowerPoint presentation in the nature trail, that a lady by the name of Nancy Bear. Nancy Bear, why don't you stand up? She said, Mister, I'll give you $1,000 if you get a tree planted in memory of my husband. And it has to be a Metasequoia. And I said, well, what's that? I had to scratch my head. I didn't know what the tree was. But after doing a little bit of research and visiting Hershey Gardens, where I found that they have several of those trees that were planted back in the 40s. They're large trees. They grow 50, 60 feet high. So Nancy, yours is going to be the focal point of the Arboretum from now on out. And if you look at it now, it's very healthy. And then the second one was planted in honor of Lloyd Fry by Audrey. And then from there on out, we have now a total of 10 trees. But isn't it hard to believe that in only 2 years we have accomplished the planting of 10 memorial trees, memorial and honor trees, and 300 smaller trees and shrubs around the Arboretum border, including the Swore Run Creek and Nature Trail. I have to give a lot of credit to the Lancaster Conservancy and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation for donating a lot of these trees free of charge. The purpose of planting trees, as you know, is to reduce the nitrogen and phosphorus pollution into the Chesapeake so that we can all enjoy more good seafood. I would like to acknowledge our committee who has helped with this project. Dennis Good, where is Dennis? Dennis. Dennis is our treasurer and secretary who keeps our financial records under control. He squeezes those nickels like you never. And then we have Steve Henning. Steve? Yay. Steve is our webmaster and publisher of our monthly newsletter. And Steve is also responsible for developing the master plan for the tree locations and installing our tree identifications tags. But since Steve came along, when did you come along? About a year ago?
Just before the pandemic.
Just before the pandemic, and really everything just materialized after Steve was with us. And then we have Shirley Arms. All right. Hey. Shirley is in charge of the flower crew who arranged the flowers and bouquets for sale and display. Shirley was also instrumental in working with me with the initial development of the Arboretum. Additional board members and friends of the Nature Trail, we have John Carpenter, Lou Kaufman, Jim McCoy, Jack Neal, David Estershoe, Bev Traeger, and Dave Warfel. I would also like to acknowledge the donors who supported the Nature Trail and Arboretum. It is with your support that we have purchased Lou's shed and other equipment and supplies necessary to continue the development of the Arboretum. I am happy to report that with the surplus contributions to Connie McMullen, we were able to purchase a picnic table to be located in the Arboretum. The picnic table is on order, and it will be available sometime in June. Also, the Friends of Romarin contributed funds to the Arboretum in the memory of Jim Doran. The funds were used to purchase 5-foot-high white spruce trees that were planted within the spruce island adjacent to the Woodcrest Arboretum. We have received many thank you letters from residents. A resident said, "I want to thank you for the hard work you have done to make our campus a more enjoyable and beautiful place to live." I now want to turn the dedication over to our Vice President of Operations of Mennonite Home, Mr. Dan Mortensen.
It is a privilege for me to be here to represent the Mennonite Home Communities Administration and to welcome you to the Woodcrest Villa campus. It's amazing when you heard Jerry talk about the creation of the Arboretum that it was actually November of 2019 when he first approached me and said, "Hey, I've got this idea about an Arboretum." And here we are less than 2 years later, and if you have not seen the Arboretum yet, you will see it this afternoon. It is absolutely gorgeous. And so on behalf of the administration, I would just like to say that we are thrilled with the Arboretum on our campus. It's making a huge contribution, and we're so glad that it is here. I have two things that I will be doing today. One is that we will be introducing the honorees, the 10 people who have trees planted in their honor in the Arboretum. And we know that there are family and friends of those honorees here. And as I read their name, we would ask that you would just stand so we can recognize that you are here in support of them. And then at the end of that part of the presentation, we're going to do a responsive reading. This is something that can happen at events like this where there's a bit of audience participation as we dedicate the Arboretum. So I'm going to read the name of the honoree that has a tree planted. And if you are here as a family or friend, please stand. The first tree that was planted was in honor of Eugene Bear. And the plaque reads, "In memory of Eugene Bear," and the tree planted in Eugene's honor is a Dawn Redwood. Thank you for coming. Lloyd S. Fry. In honor of Lloyd S. Fry, World War II vet, bird lover, trailblazer, from his wife, Audrey Ackerman Fry. The tree planted in Lloyd's honor is an apple serviceberry. Thank you. A tree was planted by a number of Woodcrest Villa residents in honor of our staff at Mennonite Home in Woodcrest Villa because of their contributions during the pandemic. And the plaque for that tree reads, "In honor of the Woodcrest and Mennonite Home staff, Woodcrest Strong, Healthcare Heroes of 2020. The tree planted in our staff's honor is a prairie fire flowering crabapple." David R. Terry. The plaque reads, "In memory of David R. Terry. The tree planted in David's honor is a Franklin tree." Franklin U?
Franklin.
I stand corrected. Thank you. Thank you. James Richard Doran. In memory of James Richard Doran, husband, father, educator, author, a Cubs fan that saw next year, so Dad, is the grammar right? The tree planted in James's honor is a Princeton century tree. Beth Rogers. In honor of Beth Rogers, visionary who inspired recycling at Woodcrest Villa by the Go Green Committee. The tree planted in Beth's honor is a Coosa dogwood. Larry Lochner. In memory of Larry Lochner, golfer, bird and animal lover, by his loving family, the tree planted in Larry's honor is an October glory maple. Constance McMullen. In memory of Constance McMullen, helpful, dedicated, courageous, by Friends of Connie. The tree planted in Connie's honor is a flowering Japanese cherry. Arlene and Henry Ebersole. In memory of Arlene and Henry Ebersole, by their family, the tree planted in Arlene and Henry's honor is an eastern redbud forest pansy. And finally, Carl R. Beck. In memory of Carl R. Beck, nature devotee, bird pursuer, from his wife, Bonnie, and family, the tree planted in Carl's honor is a northern red oak. Let's express our appreciation to all of our honorees. We actually have one other presentation we'd like to make, and I would like to invite Jerry Lawrence to come back up to the podium with me. As you heard in Jerry's remark, he has been the mover and shaker behind the creation of the Arboretum. Recently, a few months ago, the Mennonite Home Communities Administration nominated Jerry for a national award. It was called the Volunteer of the Year Award, which is given by Leading Age, a national organization that represents communities like Woodcrest Villa and Mennonite Home Communities. We believe that Jerry's contributions in the short time that he's been at Woodcrest perfectly matched the criteria. And let me read that criteria to you for the award. Significant volunteer service hours within a member community, extraordinary dedication to promoting the dignity, well-being, and independence of community members, impact and level of service that inspires a positive community environment. We certainly felt that Jerry was deserving of this recognition. Unfortunately, Jerry wasn't selected for the national award, but would you join me in just acknowledging the tremendous commitment and effort that Jerry has performed on behalf of all of us at Woodcrest Villa? Well, unbeknownst to Jerry, some of his friends have gotten together and they have purchased his favorite tree, a Royal Raindrops flowering crabapple, which will be planted in the Arboretum in Jerry's honor. Jerry's plaque reads, "In honor of Gerald R. Lawrence, husband, father, entrepreneur, Woodcrest Arboretum visionary." Jerry, every time you see this tree, we want you to be reminded of the love and appreciation of your friends and the Woodcrest Villa community for all of your efforts.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. This is a surprise to me, but I appreciate you getting this tree, and this is a special tree, as this was one of my favorite trees back in my home in Barcrest Lane. I planted it particularly for the birds. And they get the berries before I could get them. So thank you again. Thank everybody. I really appreciate that. But you know, I just remembered that I forgot to acknowledge Bruce Metzler. Where's Bruce Metzler?
All right.
Bruce,
Bruce,
Bruce is our hardest working guy on the trail, and he should be recognized as such. I had his name written down, but for some reason I just skipped over it. But I didn't want to feel that I missed it, didn't include him. But he's the hardest worker on the trail. He always gets out there with the crew, and it's remarkable what he has done. One day, Lou said to me, "I ran out of work along the trail, Jerry." So I said, "Well, I got some good work for them to do." So he and Dave Werfel tore into the Arboretum and they removed all of the honeysuckle bushes. And that's why now you can see the creek. And that gave us an area also to be able to plant all of the new trees.
Thank you, Jerry. As I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, we do have a responsive reading which we will be distributing to you, but let me share a little bit with you about what prompted me to put this together. When I was a freshman in high school, my father retired from the Navy after 20 years of service, and he moved the family to Juneau, Alaska. But we only lived in Juneau during the months that we were in school because in the summertime, we headed out to our commercial salmon fishing business. The place where we fished was a river that was about 35 miles outside of a little fishing village called Yakutat. It was right on the coast of the Gulf of Alaska. This is a very remote part of Alaska, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Mountains, glaciers, lakes, rivers, all the animals that you think of when you think of Alaska, mountain goats and bears and wolves, moose. We got a moose every fall that we ate on for the rest of the year until the following fall came around where we shot another one to eat. After catching salmon all summer, we climbed into our Cessna 206, which is a single-engine airplane that can carry 5 passengers, and my dad, who was the pilot. And we would fly back to Juneau, which was about 250 miles away. The route was over some of the most spectacular country in the world. Mountains that are over 15,000 feet high, ice fields and glaciers for as far as you could see. Magnificent lakes and rivers, and you could see moose and bear walking around on the ground as we flew over them. The Gulf of Alaska was on one side of the plane as we headed back to Juneau, but those of you that are familiar with that part of Alaska, the mountains part and the ocean fills in all the gaps, and there's these beautiful, beautiful fjords that as we turned inland to go to Juneau, we would fly along these fjords like they were giant roads. Now, this was back in the mid-1970s, long before cell phones, and so there wasn't much to do in the 2-hour flight in this airplane but to read and to sleep. But we couldn't do either of these activities because my dad had one rule when we were flying in the airplane. And that was that we had to look outside the window. Why? Because he wanted us to see and appreciate what he called the beauty of God's creation. My dad was not a religious man, but he acknowledged that God had created the beauty that we were privileged to see from a vantage point that very, very few people in the world will have the privilege of witnessing. Although there were times when I would have preferred to sleep or read, I look back on that as a real treasure because it gave me an appreciation for nature that I carry with me today. Walking through a forest, swimming in the ocean, riding my bicycle all over Lancaster County are some of my favorite activities because they connect me to the beauty of God's creation. I'm guessing that those of you who work in the Arboretum probably feel similarly to how I feel about nature. When I'm in nature, it often feels like a special present that God gave just to me. I have that feeling each time I walk through the Arboretum. So it was this backdrop that prompted me to write the responsive reading for today's occasion, which uses excerpts from the account of creation in Genesis 1 as the context for our dedication of the Arboretum. So if you're able, I would invite you to stand at this time. What I would like to do is I will read a portion, and then what I'd like all of us to do together is read the audience response. And this will serve as our dedication of the Arboretum. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. On this first day, as we dedicate the Arboretum, we affirm that it will reflect God's light in the world.
We commit that the Arboretum will reflect God's light in the world.
And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." God called the vault sky, and there was evening and there was morning, the second day. As the Arboretum exists under the expanse of the sky, we affirm that those who enjoy this space experience separation from the rigors and hardships of the world to find peace.
We commit that the Arboretum will reflect God's peace.
And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. The Arboretum is a place that reflects the diversity of trees, flowers, bushes, and other vegetation, and invokes the beauty of our world.
We commit that the Arboretum will be cherished and enjoyed by all as a sanctuary of beauty.
And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. As the Arboretum grows and matures with each day and night, and as seasons pass, may it remind us of our sacred times as we reflect on the difference we are making with our lives.
We commit that the Arboretum will be a place of reflection.
And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. As the Arboretum is filled with fish and birds who enjoy its habitat, may it remind us to live inspirational and joyful lives.
We commit that the Arboretum will be a place of joy.
And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. As the Arboretum is a place of provision for animals, may it remind us of God's faithfulness to provide our needs.
We commit that the Arboretum will remind us of God's provision.
Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. The Arboretum is a place of remembrance and is dependent on the dedication of caring residents.
We commit to care for the Arboretum as a loving tribute to the men that live honored there.
Thus the heavens and earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Because God rested after the creation of the world, may the Arboretum remind us that we can enjoy the rest that has come to us after making productive contributions through our work.
We commit that the Arboretum will be a place of rest.
May the words of Isaiah 55:12-13 inspire us as we reflect on the beauty of the Arboretum. You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Instead of the thorn bush will grow the juniper, and instead of briars the myrtle will grow. This will be for the Lord's renown, for an everlasting sign that will endure forever.
We commit that the Arboretum will remind us of God's glory.
Well, that's it. We've just dedicated the Arboretum. Thank you so much for your participation today. At this time, you can be seated here and enjoy fellowship, but we're also going to be going over to the Arboretum for those of you that would like to do that, and we'll be able to enjoy the Arboretum on this wonderful afternoon. Jared, did you have any final comments?
I just want, we just have a few snacks for you to partake of, maybe like a bottle of water or something like that. And then why don't you enjoy some of the music? The group will be back, and then you can wander down to the Arboretum at your leisure. Thank you all for coming.
Oh, right.